Under Miami's harsh airport lights, Dr. Aisha Coleman, a black UN envoy, stands victorious, her crimson diplomatic immunity card gleaming as Officer Greg Malone stalls mid-search, his gloved hand shaking over her shredded luggage. Travelers gasp, phones out, capturing her win. But Malone's sly grin whispers trouble ahead. She's dodged this disgrace, yet the air hums with menace. A routine stop has morphed into a viral clash, and Aisha senses this card won't guard her from the chaos coming, a storm set to redefine her future. What's Malone plotting next? Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and if you stand for justice breaking through bias, hit that like button and subscribe. For more stories that shake the system, Dr. Aisha Coleman moved through Miami International Airport with the steady grace of someone who had crossed too many borders to count, her Navy suit still sharp despite 30 hours of travel from Mogadishu to Florida. At 42, she carried the weight of her achievements like armor, a PhD earned at 28 from Emory, a UN envoy role secured by 35 after years of outsmarting doubters, and just yesterday, a fragile truce she'd brokered between rival warlords in Somalia, saving thousands from slaughter. Her burgundy diplomatic passport rested atop her sleek black carry-on, its gold lettering catching the fluorescent glow overhead, a quiet testament to her grind. She'd grown up in Atlanta's roughest corners, dodging glass-strewn streets and teachers who saw her skin before her potential, clawing her way to this moment. That passport wasn't just ID. It was proof she'd beaten the odds stacked against her since birth. Now, at 2:15 in the afternoon, with a UN debriefing in DC looming 12 hours away, she needed to clear security fast. The air buzzed with the chaos of summer travel, kids whining, suitcases clattering, intercoms blaring about gate changes. Aisha adjusted her silk scarf, squared her shoulders, and stepped into the line, her posture a silent command. I belong. Here. But across the checkpoint, Officer Greg Malone saw something else. Leaning against a metal detector, he adjusted his stiff TSA vest, the fabric tight across his stocky frame. Late 40s, buzzed hair fading to gray, he'd been an ex-Marine before this gig, a man who thrived on control, his face etched with lines from years of barking orders nobody dared question. His blue eyes swept the crowd like a predator scanning for prey, always hunting for someone who didn't fit his narrow picture of normal. Then they locked on Aisha. She stood out, not because she tried to, but because she couldn't help it. A black woman in a tailored suit, rolling a high-end carry-on, clutching a red passport most travelers never saw. To Malone, that didn't add up. His jaw tightened, a muscle twitching under his stubbled cheek. She moved too smoothly, too confidently, like she owned the place. His gut churned with something old and ugly, a reflex he'd never bothered to name, let alone question. He'd seen her type before, or so he told himself, people who thought they could breeze through his domain without proving they belonged. Not today. Malone pushed off the wall, his boots thudding on the tiled floor, and angled toward his post at the document check station. He didn't rush, he calculated. Aisha reached the front of the line, handing her passport to a younger officer, a lanky kid named Tim who barely glanced at it before waving her through with a bored nod. She slipped off her low heels, unbuttoned her blazer, and placed her laptop in a gray plastic tray, her movements fluid, practiced, the rhythm of someone who'd navigated airports more times than she'd slept in her own bed. The line shuffled forward, travelers grumbling about delays, the humid Miami air sticking to their skin. Aisha's tray slid onto the conveyor belt, her carry-on following, and she stepped toward the metal detector, ready to melt back into the flow. That's when Malone made his move. "Ma'am," he called out, his voice cutting through the hum like a blade, loud enough to turn heads. Aisha paused, one foot already in the scanner, and turned slowly, her dark eyes meeting his. "I'm gonna need you to come with me for additional screening." The words landed heavy, deliberate, laced with an authority he wore like a second skin. The air around them stilled, a ripple of silence spreading through the line. A white guy in a polo shirt behind her side, annoyed, but others perked up, sensing a show. Aisha's pulse ticked up, not from fear, but from recognition. She'd felt this before, the weight of a stare that didn't see her degrees or her title, just her melanin. Her chest tightened, a familiar ache from decades of proving herself in rooms where she was the only one who looked like her. Still, she kept her face neutral, her voice smooth as glass. "Is there a problem, officer?" Malone stepped closer, towering over her 5'6" frame, his bulk casting a shadow across her tray. "Random selection," he said, his tone flat, eyes sliding past hers to the passport in the tray. He didn't buy it. That red cover, that UN seal, it screamed privilege he didn't think she'd earned. His fingers itched to tear into it, to find the lie he was sure hid beneath her polish. Aisha caught the flicker in his gaze, the way it lingered on her skin before her credentials, and knew this wasn't random. It never was. She'd just spent 3 weeks in Somalia, staring down generals with blood on their boots, negotiating with men who'd sooner shoot than listen, and she'd walked out with a ceasefire. Now, in her own country, she was back to square one, suspect in a uniform's eyes. "I've got a flight to catch," she said, calm but firm, testing him. "Won't take long," Malone lied, his lips curling into a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. He jerked his head toward a side station, a glass-walled booth 10 feet away, and started walking, expecting her to follow. Aisha's mind raced, weighing her options. She could push back, flash her status, but she'd learned long ago that defiance only sharpened their knives. She'd flow for now, let him dig his own hole. With a slow breath, she grabbed her tray, from the belt, her heels clicking as she trailed him. Every step a quiet rebellion against the indignity he thought he could force on her. The crowd parted, some staring, others pretending not to see, the tension coiling tighter with every second. At the booth, Malone snapped on blue latex gloves with a loud crack, the sound echoing in the small space. "Put your bag here," he ordered, pointing to a scratched metal table. Aisha complied, setting her carry-on down with deliberate care, her eyes locked on his. He unzipped it fast, like he was gutting a fish, and started tossing her belongings out. A silk blouse crumpled. In his fist, a leather notebook slapped onto the table. A ziplock of toiletries flung aside. Her jaw clenched, but she stood still, hands loose at her sides, giving him nothing to feed on. He dug deeper, pulling out a sealed manila folder stamped with the UN logo, its edges crisp, its contents classified. He held it up, squinting at the seal, then at her. "What's this?" "Diplomatic documents," she said, her voice level, each word a brick in the wall she was building. "Protected under international law." Malone's smirk widened, a glint of amusement in his eyes like he'd caught her in a game. "Open it," he said, not asking, demanding, his tone daring her to refuse. Aisha's breath caught, not from surprise but from the sheer audacity. She'd faced warlords who respected protocol more than this guy. "I can't," she replied, steady as ever. "You don't have clearance." His fingers tightened on the folder, knuckles whitening, and he stepped closer, his breath hot with coffee and contempt. "I decide what's clear here," he snapped, tossing the folder back into the bag but not letting it go, his hand hovering over it like a threat. The booth's glass walls reflected the growing crowd outside, a dozen phones now aimed at them, lenses glinting like eyes. A teenage girl in a hoodie whispered to her mom, "She's not even fighting back." A businessman in a wrinkled suit muttered, "Typical power trip." Aisha felt their stares, a mix of pity and curiosity, but she kept her focus on Malone. He was escalating, turning this into a spectacle, and she knew why. It wasn't about security. It was about her. Her poise, her presence, her blackness in a space he'd claimed as his. She'd seen it in classrooms, boardrooms, embassies. Men like him who couldn't stand her refusing to shrink. "You're holding up the line," she said, nodding at the growing bottleneck behind them, her voice a quiet jab. Malone's eyes flashed, a storm brewing behind them. "I'll hold up whatever I want," he growled, yanking the folder back, out and slamming it on the table, the thud reverberating through the booth. He leaned in, voice low so only she could hear. "You think that fancy passport makes you untouchable? Prove it." His glove brushed the seal, daring her to stop him, his smirk now a snarl. Aisha's pulse hammered, not from fear, but from fury, the kind she'd buried since she was a kid watching her dad get frisked for looking suspicious. She'd outsmarted worse than Malone, but this wasn't Somalia. This was home, and that made it cut deeper. The folder sat there, a ticking bomb between them, and she knew this was just the beginning. Aisha Coleman stood rigid in the glass-walled booth at Miami International Airport, her navy suit now wrinkled from the humidity, and Officer Greg Malone's relentless prodding. Her carry-on lay gutted on the scratched metal table, its contents strewn like casualties of a petty war. A crumpled silk blouse, a cracked toiletry bag, and that sealed UN folder, its edges creased from Malone's rough grip. He loomed over it, his gloved hand poised like a vulture, his smirk daring her to flinch. "Open it," he'd said, voice thick with challenge, as if her refusal would crack her polished shell. She hadn't budged, her dark eyes boring into his, steady as granite. "You don't have clearance," she'd repeated, each syllable. A quiet defiance, a shield forged from years of navigating rooms where her presence alone was a threat. The crowd outside pressed closer, phones aloft, their murmurs a low hum beneath the terminal's fluorescent buzz. Aisha felt their eyes, a weight she'd carried since childhood, but she wouldn't give Malone the satisfaction of seeing her sweat. His fingers twitched over the folder, itching to rip it apart, to prove she was bluffing about that burgundy passport glinting in her tray 10 feet away. To him, it was a prop, a lie she'd conjured to dodge his authority. He leaned in, his breath sour with stale coffee, his blue eyes narrowing to slits. "I don't care what you say it is," he hissed, loud enough for the booth but not the crowd. "You're in my house now." Aisha's pulse thumped, not from fear, but from a fury she'd learned to leash long ago. She'd just brokered peace. In Somalia, staring down men with rifles while flies buzzed over fresh graves, and here was this petty tyrant treating her like a shoplifter. Her mind raced, call his bluff or escalate. She chose the nuclear option. With a slow, deliberate reach, she slipped her hand into her blazer's inner pocket, her fingers brushing the slim, laminated edge she'd kept close since her first UN posting. Malone's smirk faltered as she pulled it out, a crimson card, no bigger than a driver's license, its gold trim catching the light. The words "diplomatic immunity" stamped in bold across the front. She held it up, not thrusting it in his face but presenting it like a judge's gavel, her voice cutting through the stale air. "You've got no jurisdiction here. This is issued by the United Nations and the U.S. State Department under the Vienna Convention. Step back." The booth went silent, the only sound the faint whir of the air conditioning overhead. Malone froze, his hand still hovering over the folder, his mouth twitching as if his brain couldn't process the shift. Disbelief flickered in his eyes, then dread, a crack in the armor of a man who'd never been told no by someone like her. The card wasn't just paper, it was power, law, a wall he couldn't bulldoze. Outside, the crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath rippling through the line. A college kid in a tank top elbowed his friend, whispering, "Did she just shut him down?" An older woman with a straw hat clutched her purse tighter, muttering, "Good for her." Phones tilted higher, capturing every second, the red card a beacon in their screens. Aisha stood taller, her shoulders squared, the weight of their stares shifting from pity to awe. She'd won, hadn't she? Malone's hand dropped, his glove brushing the table, his smirk replaced by a scowl that promised something darker. Before he could speak, a sharp voice sliced through the tension. "Officer Malone, step away from the passenger." "Supervisor." Linda Voss strode into the booth, her gray-streaked hair pulled tight in a bun, her piercing green eyes locking on him like a hawk spotting a snake. Voss, a wiry woman in her late 50s, carried the no-nonsense air of someone who'd climbed the TSA ranks by sheer grit. Her badge swung from her blazer as she planted herself between Malone and Aisha, her presence a sudden storm front. "What's going on here?" she snapped, her tone clipped, her gaze flicking to the scattered luggage, then the card still in Aisha's hand. Malone opened his mouth, but she cut him off with a raised palm. "Don't even try it," she said, her voice low and lethal. "You know damn well what that card means. You're done." The crowd leaned in, phones steady, the air electric with anticipation. Voss turned to Aisha, her expression softening just a fraction. "Ma'am." I apologize for the delay. You're free to go. Aisha nodded, her face still a mask of calm, though her chest thrummed with a mix of relief and triumph. She gathered her things, shoving the folder back into her bag, her movements precise despite the chaos Malone had wrought. Malone stood rooted, his fists clenching at his sides, his face a tightening knot of rage and humiliation. As Aisha zipped her carry-on and stepped past him, he muttered under his breath, too low for Voss to catch, but clear as day to Aisha. "This ain't over." The word slithered down her spine, a venomous promise she couldn't shake. She didn't respond, didn't glance back, just kept walking, her heels clicking toward the gate. The crowd parted, some clapping softly, others still filming, her victory a fleeting spotlight in the terminal's grind. She boarded her flight to DC, settling into her seat with a long exhale, the card tucked back in her pocket, her mind replaying Voss's intervention. She'd dodged the bullet, reclaimed her dignity. The plane taxied, engines roaring, and she let herself believe the worst was behind her. 3 hours later, she landed at Reagan National Airport, the DC skyline a gray smudge through the window. She powered on her phone, expecting a text from Marcus Tate, her UN liaison, about the debriefing. Instead, a red alert flashed. Passenger status, no fly restriction. Her stomach dropped, a cold sweat prickling her neck. She tapped the airline app, her fingers trembling as she read the details. Flagged for unresolved security concerns. From Miami. Malone's voice echoed in her head. This ain't over, he'd struck back, not with fists but with a system he knew how to twist. She was 600 miles from her briefing, stranded in a city buzzing with bureaucrats, her triumph at the checkpoint now a hollow shell. She grabbed her bag and stormed toward the TSA desk, her mind racing. How had he pulled this off so fast? What strings had he yanked? At the desk, a bored clerk in a wrinkled uniform glanced at her passport, then her face, his lips curling into a faint sneer. Systems locked, he said, shrugging like it was her fault. You're not flying tonight, Aisha's voice sharpened, her patience fraying. This is a mistake. I'm a UN diplomat. Check my status. He tapped a few keys, then shook his head. Says here you're a risk. Miami flagged you. Her blood boiled, the pieces snapping into place. Malone hadn't just sulked away. He'd texted someone, maybe a buddy in security, the second Voss turned her back. This was his first counterpunch, a jab to her ribs when she thought she'd knocked him out. She was stuck, her debriefing ticking closer, and Malone's reach was longer than she'd guessed. Hey folks, what do you think about Aisha pulling that card? Drop a number 1 in the comments if you'd have cheered her on in that booth, standing up to Malone's power trip. Or maybe a 2 if you think he deserved a harder slapdown. Hit that like button if you're rooting for her to beat this system, and subscribe to catch how she fights back against this dirty play. Malone's not done, and neither is she. Ever had someone try to knock you down just for being you? Share that below. Let's get this convo rolling. So, what's Malone got up his sleeve now that Aisha's grounded in DC? Will his next move clip her wings for good? Or is she about to turn the tables on him again? Stick around to find out how this grudge match explodes next. Dr. Aisha Coleman stood at the TSA desk in Reagan National Airport, the DC evening pressing against the terminal's glass walls, a humid haze blurring the runway lights. Her navy suit clung to her skin, sweat beading from fury more than heat. Her burgundy diplomatic passport clutched tight in one hand. The clerk, Pete, a wiry white guy with a faded mustache and a smirk that screamed ex-cop, leaned back in his chair, his fingers drumming lazily on a chipped keyboard. Systems locked, he'd said, his voice a gravelly drawl, eyes flicking over her like she was a petty thief, not a UN envoy. You're not flying tonight. Aisha's chest burned, the no-fly alert on her phone glaring like a neon sign. Passenger status restricted, security concerns, Miami origin. Malone's parting shot from 300 miles south had landed square in her gut, stranding her 600 miles from her UN debriefing in New York, now 11 hours away. She slammed her passport on the counter, the thud sharp enough to make Pete flinch. This is a mistake, she said, her tone honed to a blade. I'm a senior peace negotiator with the United Nations. I cleared security in Miami with diplomatic immunity. Check my status again. Pete's smirk widened, a slow, deliberate stretch, and he tapped a few keys with theatrical slowness, his gaze never leaving her face. Says here you're a risk, he drawled, leaning forward, elbows on the desk. Miami flagged you. Suspicious behavior. Can't override it from here. Aisha's pulse hammered, her mind racing back to Malone's muttered threat. This ain't over. He'd done this, fast and dirty, twisting the system she'd outplayed him in. She'd humiliated him in front of a crowd, and now he'd locked her wings, his reach snaking through TSA's back channels. Who flagged me? She demanded, leaning in, her voice low but lethal. I want a name. Pete shrugged, a lazy roll of his shoulders, his fingers pausing over the keys. Doesn't say. Just came through the system. Happens sometimes. His eyes glinted, a flicker of amusement, and Aisha caught it. He knew more than he was letting on. Malone had a network, and Pete was in it, a cog in the machine oiled by the same old bigotry she'd faced since she was a kid in Atlanta, pulled over for looking wrong in her dad's beat-up Chevy. She straightened, her jaw tight, and pulled out her phone, dialing Marcus Tate, her UN liaison, a wiry ex-lawyer with a knack for cutting through bureaucratic quicksand. Marcus, she said when he picked up, her voice steady despite the storm inside. I'm grounded in D.C., no-fly list. Miami's behind it. Marcus's voice crackled through, sharp with alarm. What? You cleared security with the card. How'd they pull this? Aisha glanced at Pete, who'd gone back to scrolling something on his screen, pretending not to listen. Malone, she said simply, the name a curse. He's got friends. I need you to dig into this now. Marcus cursed under his breath, then said, Give me an hour. I'll call state, see who's jerking the chain. She hung up, her mind spinning. 11 hours to New York, a debriefing that could shape UN policy in East Africa. And she was stuck in this fluorescent purgatory, Malone's smirk haunting her. She couldn't wait for Marcus to untangle this. She'd miss the meeting, and Malone would win. She pivoted, striding to the rental car counter, her heels clicking with purpose. If she couldn't fly, she'd drive the 250 miles herself. The rental clerk, a tired woman with frizzy hair and a name tag reading Cheryl, handed her the keys to a silver sedan without a fuss, barely glancing at her diplomatic ID. Aisha tossed her ravaged carry-on in the trunk, slid into the driver's seat, and peeled out of the lot, the DC skyline shrinking in her rear view. The highway stretched north, a ribbon of asphalt under a bruised twilight sky, and she cranked the AC, her mind settling into a plan. 250 miles, 4 hours. If she pushed it, plenty of time to hit New York by midnight and prep for the debriefing. She'd outsmarted Malone again, turned his trap into a detour. Her phone buzzed. Marcus texting, checking TSA logs, hang tight. She exhaled, a flicker of hope igniting. Maybe this was it, the last of his spite. The road hummed beneath, her tires, headlights slicing through the dusk, and for a moment she let herself believe she'd won. 50 miles out, near Fredericksburg, Virginia, that hope shattered. Red and blue lights flared in her mirrors, a state trooper's cruiser roaring up behind her. She checked her speed, 65 in a 65 zone, dead legal. Her stomach knotted, a primal instinct kicking in, the kind that had saved her in war zones and back alleys. She pulled over, gravel crunching under the tires, and gripped the wheel, her breathing steady but shallow. The trooper swaggered out, a lanky white guy in his 30s, mirrored sunglasses reflecting her car's taillights, his hand resting on his holster. License and registration, he barked, his voice clipped, his stance all business. Aisha handed them over, her diplomatic passport on top, her tone calm. I'm a UN envoy. Is there a problem? He snatched the papers, squinting at the passport like it was a fake ID from a college kid. Step out of the vehicle, he said, ignoring her question, his fingers tightening on the grip of his gun. Aisha's heart thudded, but she complied, easing the door open, her heels sinking into the roadside dirt. What's this about? She asked, her voice firm, her eyes locked on his. He smirked, A thin, cruel twist of his lips, and tossed her passport onto the hood. "This car's reported stolen. You're under arrest." The words hit like a slap, her mind reeling. Stolen. She'd rented it 30 minutes ago, papers in order, receipt in her bag. "That's impossible," she said, stepping forward, hands raised to show compliance. "Check the rental agreement, call the agency." "Hands behind your back!" he snapped, yanking cuffs from his belt, the metal glinting in the cruiser's lights. Aisha froze, her breath catching, the absurdity sinking in. This wasn't a mistake. It was Malone, his tendrils stretching further than she'd imagined. He'd tipped this trooper off, fed him a lie to bury her deeper. "I'm a diplomat," she said louder now, her voice cutting through the highway's quiet. "You're violating protocol." The trooper laughed, a harsh barking sound, and grabbed her wrist, twisting it behind her. "Tell it to the judge," he sneered, snapping the cuffs tight, the steel biting into her skin. She winced but didn't cry out, her dignity a shield against his roughness. He shoved her toward the cruiser, her carry-on still in the trunk, her phone buzzing uselessly on the passenger seat. The drive to the precinct was a blur, 30 minutes of silence broken only by the trooper's radio crackling with static. Aisha sat in the back, wrists aching, her mind racing. Malone had gone beyond spite. This was a calculated strike, a racist power play to crush her after she dared to flash that card. The precinct loomed ahead, a squat brick building off Route 1, its parking lot lit by flickering sodium lamps. The trooper, whose badge read Caldwell, hauled her inside, past a desk sergeant who barely looked up, and dumped her in a holding cell. The door clanged shut, the sound echoing off cinderblock walls, and Caldwell smirked through the bars. "Should have stayed in line," he said, then walked off, leaving her alone under a buzzing bulb. Aisha paced the 6x8 cell, her heels scuffing the grimy floor, her suit jacket torn at the elbow from the scuffle. Her debriefing was 10 hours away, New York 200 miles north, and she was caged like a criminal, Malone's revenge tightening around her throat. She replayed the airport clash, his smirk, his muttered threat, the way he'd slunk off only to strike from the shadows. He'd called someone, maybe Pete, maybe this trooper, spinning a web she couldn't see yet. Her phone, passport, and card were gone, confiscated by Caldwell, leaving her defenseless in a system that didn't care about her title. She stopped pacing, her breath steadying, and sank onto the metal bench, her mind shifting to survival mode. She'd beaten worse odds in Mogadishu. She'd beat this too. But as the clock ticked toward midnight, she couldn't shake the chill. Malone's next move was coming, and it'd be uglier than this. Dr. Aisha Coleman sat on the cold metal bench in a dimly lit holding cell 60 miles south of D.C., the air thick with mildew and the faint tang of bleach. Her navy suit hung off her frame, torn at the elbow, stained with roadside dust, her wrists raw from Trooper Caldwell's cuffs. The precinct's cinderblock walls loomed around her, a 6x8 box lit by a flickering bulb that buzzed like a trapped fly. Her heels scraped the grimy floor as she stood, pacing, her mind a storm of strategy and rage. 9 hours to her UN debriefing in New York, 200 miles away, and she was locked up on a lie. A stolen rental car, a setup cooked up by Officer Greg Malone from Miami. Her phone, burgundy passport, and diplomatic immunity card were gone, snatched by Caldwell when he'd shoved her in here 30 minutes ago. She was defenseless, stripped of proof. A diplomat reduced to a number in a rural Virginia hellhole. The cell door's lock clanked, and Caldwell swaggered in, his mirrored sunglasses pushed up on his buzzed head, a smirk curling his thin lips. "Comfy?" he asked, twirling her passport between his fingers like a toy. Aisha stopped pacing, her dark eyes locking on him, steady despite the ache in her bones. "That's diplomatic property," she said, her voice calm but edged with steel. "You're breaking international law." He laughed, a sharp, grating sound that bounced off the walls, and tossed the passport onto a folding chair just outside. The bars. "Ain't no diplomat, I see," he sneered, stepping closer, his boots thudding on the concrete. "Just a chick with a fake ID who stole a car." Aisha's jaw tightened, her pulse spiking, but she kept her face a mask. This wasn't ignorance, it was malice, Malone's poison dripping through this trooper's veins. "I want a phone call," she said, planting her feet, her tone a command, not a request. Caldwell's smirk faded, his hand drifting to his baton, fingers flexing. "You don't get to want anything," he snapped, his voice dropping low, menacing. "We're holding you till the judge sorts this mess tomorrow, maybe longer." Aisha's stomach twisted, the debriefing clock ticking louder in her head. Tomorrow was too late. Malone knew that, had planned it. She stepped toward the bars, close enough to smell his cheap cologne, and lowered her voice. "You've got my immunity card. Call your supervisor. This ends now." Caldwell's eyes narrowed, a flicker of doubt crossing his face, but then he grinned, a cruel twist. "Heard about that card. Called Miami. They say it's forged. You're nobody." The words landed like a punch, her breath catching. Malone had gotten to them, spun a tale so fast it had reached this backwater precinct before she could blink. Her card, her shield, was trash to them now, her status erased by a racist lie. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms, and forced her mind to focus. Caldwell turned to leave, but she called out, "I'm entitled to a call under U.S. law. Deny me, and you're the one in cuffs next." He paused, shoulders stiffening, then muttered, "Fine," and stomped off, slamming the door. Aisha exhaled, her breath shaky, knowing she'd bought a sliver of time. Malone's web was tightening, but she wasn't done fighting. Minutes dragged into an hour, the bulb's buzz drilling into her skull. The desk sergeant, a grizzled bear of a man named Roy, lumbered in, his gut straining his uniform, a toothpick rolling between his yellowed teeth. He tossed her phone through the bars, its screen cracked from Caldwell's rough handling. "One call," he growled, crossing his arms. "Make it quick." Aisha snatched it, her fingers trembling as she dialed Marcus Tate, praying the battery held. He picked up on the second ring, his voice tight with worry. "Aisha, where are you?" She kept it brief, her words clipped. "Fredericksburg Precinct, arrested, stolen car charge. Malone's behind it. They're calling my card fake. Get me out." Marcus cursed, loud enough to echo, then said, "I'm on it. UN lawyers are moving. Hang tight." She hung up, sliding, the phone back to Roy, who snatched it with a grunt and waddled off, muttering, "Fancy talk won't help you here." Roy didn't leave, though. He lingered outside, flipping through her passport, his thick fingers smudging the pages. "UN, huh?" he said, loud enough for her to hear, his tone mocking. "Guess they'll take anybody these days." He pulled out her immunity card, squinting at it like it was a coupon past its date, then chuckled, a wet, guttural sound. "Pretty paper don't mean squat in my jail." He tossed it into a drawer, slamming it shut, the clang ringing in Aisha's ears. Her blood boiled, a fire stoked by every slur she'd swallowed growing up, every professor who'd doubted her, every diplomat who'd smirked until she proved them wrong. She gripped the bars, her knuckles whitening, but stayed silent, letting him think he'd won. She needed an edge, something to break this cage. Her chance came at 2 in the morning, the precinct quiet except for Roy's snoring at the desk. A janitor, a wiry black man in his 60s with salt and pepper hair, shuffled in, mop in hand, his eyes flicking to her with a knowing glint. Aisha caught it, a spark of hope, and leaned close to the bars, whispering, "I need a favor." He paused, glancing at Roy, then nodded subtly. She grabbed a scrap of toilet paper from the cell's rusty sink, scribbled a note with a pen she'd swiped from Caldwell's chair earlier. "Marcus Tate, UN 2022-555-0192. Tell him Aisha's here, urgent." She folded it tight and slid it through the bars. The janitor, his name tag reading Earl, palmed it, his face unreadable, and kept mopping, slipping out without a word. Aisha held her breath, praying he'd deliver. Hours crawled by, the cell's chill seeping into her bones, her debriefing, now 7 hours away. At dawn, the precinct door burst open, 3 suits storming in. UN lawyers, their briefcases gleaming, voices sharp with authority. The lead, a tall woman with a buzz cut named Carla, slapped a writ on Roy's desk, waking him with a jolt. "Release Dr. Coleman, now!" she barked, her tone brooking no argument. Roy blinked, bleary-eyed, then fumbled for keys, grumbling about damn feds. Caldwell slunk in, his smirk gone, replaced by a scowl as he unlocked the cell. Aisha stepped out, her legs stiff, her suit a ruin but her head high. Carla handed over her passport and card, murmuring, "Marcus pulled strings. You're clear." Aisha nodded, relief flooding her, and grabbed her carry-on from evidence. The UN folder intact. She'd beaten Malone's trap, her mind already on the road to New York. She hitched a ride with Carla's team, the sedan speeding north on I-95, the sunrise painting the sky gold. 6 hours to the debriefing, 200 miles to go. She'd make it, bruised but unbroken. She leaned back, exhaustion tugging at her, thinking she'd dodged the worst. Then Carla's phone buzzed, a news alert popping up. UN diplomat arrested in VA, fraud suspect? Aisha snatched it, her heart sinking. A local tabloid had her mugshot, her face grim under precinct lights, the story claiming she'd faked. Her credentials, resisted arrest, stolen a car. Roy's work, or Caldwell's, leaked on Malone's orders. Her victory soured, the smear spreading like wildfire, her name now a punchline. She handed the phone back, her hands trembling, rage simmering anew. Malone wasn't just caging her, he was torching her reputation, his next blow landing harder than the cuffs. The car hummed along, New York looming closer, but Aisha's mind was elsewhere, replaying Roy's laugh, Caldwell's sneer, Malone's muttered threat. He'd called ahead, poisoned this precinct against her, and now he'd weaponized the press. She'd escaped the cell, but the fight was far from over. Her debriefing mattered, her Somalia truce mattered, but this smear could unravel it all, painting her as a liar to the world. She clenched her fists, her nails digging in, a vow forming. She'd bury Malone, expose his game. But as the miles ticked by, a chill settled in her gut. This wasn't his last move. It was a warning shot, and whatever came next would be a cannon blast. Dr. Aisha Coleman slumped in the back seat of the UN sedan racing up I-95, her torn Navy suit a map of the night's battles, precinct dirt on the hem, a ripped elbow from Caldwell's cuffs, sweat stains from 60 miles of dread. The sunrise bled orange over New Jersey's skyline, 5 hours to her UN debriefing in New York, her Somalia truce hanging on her presence. Her wrists still ached, red welts pulsing where steel had bitten, but the real wound was the phone Carla handed her, its screen glowing with a tabloid headline, UN diplomat or con artist. Her mugshot stared back, grim under precinct fluorescence, the story of venomous smear. Fake credentials, car theft, resisting arrest. Roy's leak, Malone's orders, a dagger plunged while she'd been clawing her way free. Her victory over. The cell dissolved, replaced by a public execution of her name. The sedan hit Manhattan at 8, tires hissing on wet pavement, the UN's glass tower looming through morning fog. Aisha stormed the lobby, her carry-on dragging behind, her heels clicking a war drum. Marcus Tate met her at the elevators, his lanky frame tense, his brown eyes sharp with fury. "They're eating it up," he said, shoving his tablet at her. Twitter scrolled with Dr. Fake Diplomat, pundits on morning shows dissecting her scam, a far-right blog called Patriot Truth, screaming she'd played the race card to dodge justice. "Malone's behind this," Aisha said, her voice low, a growl from deep within. Marcus nodded, his fingers tapping the screen. "I dug into TSA logs. He's got a buddy, Pete, who pushed the no-fly flag. This blog traces to a server he's linked to. Bastards playing dirty." She followed Marcus to the briefing room, a sterile box of white walls and oak tables where UN brass waited. A gray-haired Swedish mediator named Ingrid, a Kenyan analyst called Jomo, faces tight with concern. Aisha dropped her bag, squared her shoulders, and launched into her Somalia report, her voice steady despite the chaos outside. She detailed the truce, the tribal concessions, the fragile peace holding by threads, her words a lifeline to thousands. Ingrid nodded, impressed, but Jomo cut in. his tone gentle. Dr. Coleman, this news mess, it's a distraction we can't ignore. Aisha's jaw clenched, her debriefing now a sideshow to Malone's vendetta. It's lies, she said, slamming the tabloid printout on the table. I'll handle it. Marcus pulled her aside after, his voice urgent. Patriot Truth's backtracking already. I've got IP logs tying Malone to their admin. We can kill this. Aisha nodded, her mind racing. She stormed the UN press office, a hive of clicking keyboards and harried aides, and cornered Lila, the comms chief, a wiry woman with a buzz cut and a no-BS vibe. I need a statement out now, Aisha said, her tone brooking no delay. Verify my status, my record, all of it. Lila scribbled notes, her pen flying. We'll blast it to every outlet by noon. Photos too, your Somalia work. Bury this garbage. Aisha exhaled, a flicker of control returning. The statement dropped at 11:55, a crisp UN letterhead, declaring her a senior envoy, her credentials ironclad, the arrest a misunderstanding. Patriot Truth posted a meek retraction. New evidence suggests error, and Aisha thought she'd won, her name clawing back from the mud. She hit. The debriefing's second half at noon, her voice sharper now, detailing logistics for Somalia's aid drop. The room hummed with approval, Ingrid pledging support, Jomo sketching timelines. Aisha sank into her chair after, exhaustion tugging at her, believing the storm had passed. Then Marcus burst in, his face ashen, tablet trembling in his hand. You need to see this, he said, shoving it at her. CNN's ticker blared. Congressman Victor Hayes calls for probe into UN diplomats' immunity abuse. A clip rolled. Hayes, a paunchy white guy in his 60s, silver hair slicked back, stood at a podium, his drawl thick with outrage. This woman's hiding behind a fancy card, dodging accountability. We need answers. Aisha's stomach plummeted, her brief victory evaporating. Malone wasn't done. He'd roped in a bigger gun. Hayes's face filled the screen, his eyes glinting with a predator's glee, his words a dog whistle to every bigot watching. She's a security risk, folks. Miami says she's trouble. Virginia locked her up and now she's crying diplomat. I'm launching an investigation. No one's above the law. The studio erupted, pundits piling on, a blonde anchor cooing. Sounds like she's gaming the system. Aisha's hands shook, rage and disbelief warring inside her. Marcus paced, muttering. Hayes is Malone's escalation. He's got juice, Aisha. DOJ ties, committee pull. This isn't a blog, it's a sledgehammer. She nodded, her mind spinning back to Miami. Malone's smirk, his muttered threat, his quick exit. With a phone in hand. He'd texted more than Pete. He dialed up a congressman, a racist with power to burn her life down. The UN press team scrambled, Lila barking orders, but Aisha knew this was beyond statements now. Hayes's probe wasn't about truth. It was a lynching in a suit, Malone's revenge scaled to a national stage. Her Somalia work, her career, teetered on a cliff. Her triumph at the airport, a distant echo. She'd cleared the cell, forced the blog's retreat, but this was a beast she couldn't outrun with a card or a press release. TV screens in the lobby looped Hayes's speech, his finger jabbing the air, her mugshot flashing beside him. A narrative cementing, race card playing fraud. Her phone buzzed, ignored calls from reporters, a text from Marcus. Found Hayes's donor list, Malone's crew's in deep. Aisha's breath hitched, the web tightening, her fight no longer just hers, but a symbol Malone and Hayes aimed to crush. Hey viewers, what's your take on Aisha's roller coaster? Drop a number 1 in the comments if you think she's getting a raw deal from this smear machine, or a 2 if you'd have flipped the table on Hayes already. Hit that like button if you're fired up watching her battle these liars, and subscribe to see how she tackles this congressional curveball. Ever faced a rumor that wouldn't die? Tell us below. Let's unpack this mess together. Malone's pulled a titan into the ring, but Aisha's not backing down. Who's got the upper hand now? So, can Aisha outsmart a congressman with Malone, whispering in his ear, or will this probe bury her for good? Will her next stand knock Hayes off his pedestal, or is Malone's next punch about to land even harder? Stay tuned to see how this showdown explodes in the Capitol's glare. Dr. Aisha Coleman stepped into the Capitol Hill hearing room, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and old money, her torn navy suit swapped for a charcoal blazer and skirt, her heels clicking on marble like a metronome of resolve. 3 days since the UN debriefing, her Somalia truce now a UN priority, but Congressman Victor Hayes had dragged her here, his probe a public gallows for her career. The room buzzed with aides, reporters, and a dozen lawmakers, their eyes dissecting her as she took the witness stand. Her wrists still bore faint cuff marks, her carry-on sat by her chair, the burgundy passport and immunity card tucked inside, relics of a fight she thought she'd won. Hayes sat at the committee dais, his silver hair gleaming under recessed lights, his paunch straining his pinstripe suit, a smirk playing on his lips like a hunter sizing up prey. The gavel banged, a sharp crack silencing the murmurs, and Hayes leaned into his mic, his drawl slow and deliberate. Dr. Coleman, you claim diplomatic immunity shielded you from a lawful TSA search in Miami, an arrest in Virginia, and now you're dodging accountability. Explain yourself. His voice dripped with accusation, his eyes glinting, a performance for the C-SPAN cameras rolling behind her. Aisha straightened, her dark eyes meeting his, her voice steady as granite. Congressman, I'm a UN peace envoy. My immunity's issued under the Vienna Convention, recognized by the U.S. Miami's Officer Malone exceeded his authority. Virginia's arrest was baseless, dropped within hours. I've dodged nothing. The room shifted, aides scribbling, reporters tapping phones, her calm slicing through Hayes's bluster. He scoffed, a theatrical huff, flipping through a stack of papers. Miami says you resisted. Virginia says you stole a car. Sounds like a pattern to me. You're no diplomat. You're a liability. Aisha's jaw tightened, fury simmering beneath her poise, but she'd prepped for this with Marcus. Overnight, her Somalia files and UN statements her ammo. She slid a folder forward, her fingers steady. Here's my record. 3 weeks in Somalia, a truce saving 10,000 lives. Here's the UN's verification of my status dated yesterday. Your pattern is a fabrication. Hayes's smirk faltered, his fingers pausing on his notes, but he pressed on, voice rising. That card's a get-out-of-jail-free pass and you abused it. Taxpayers deserve answers. Aisha leaned forward, her tone sharp now, a blade unsheathed. Taxpayers deserve competence, not vendettas. Malone targeted me for my race, not my actions. Virginia dismissed the charges. The UN cleared me. You're chasing ghosts. The room erupted, a low roar of gasps and whispers. A black senator in the back nodding faintly, a white aide wincing. Hayes banged his gavel, his face reddening, but Aisha didn't flinch, her evidence a shield he couldn't dent. She walked them through Somalia, her voice painting the chaos she'd tamed. Tribal leaders at gunpoint, her negotiating table a rickety plank, peace forged in sweat and blood. Hayes interrupted. That's irrelevant. But she cut him off smooth as silk. It's the core of who I am. You're questioning my integrity. This is my answer. The hearing stretched 2 hours, Hayes grilling her on every detail. The airport, the cell, the car. Aisha parried each jab, her facts airtight, her calm unshaken. She cited the Vienna Convention, Article 31, immunity from search. She quoted TSA protocol breached by Malone. She dropped the UN's press release like a bomb, its weight sinking Hayes's narrative. The room tilted her way, a gray-haired congresswoman, murmuring, "She's solid," a reporter tweeting, "Coleman's dismantling Hayes live." At 3:15, Hayes slumped back, his questions exhausted, his smirk gone. The chair, a stern woman named Ruiz, closed it out. "Thank you, Dr. Coleman. This committee will review." Applause rippled, soft but real, and Aisha stood, head high, her blazer crisp despite the sweat on her neck. She'd crushed him, hadn't she? She walked out, Marcus at her side, his lanky frame buzzing with relief. "You owned that," he said, clapping her shoulder as they hit the Capitol steps, the DC sun dipping low, casting long shadows. Hayes looked like a fool. Socials, flipping. Aisha stands is trending. Aisha exhaled, a rare smile tugging her lips, her carry-on rolling behind her. The tabloid smear was fading. The UN's backing solid, Hayes's probe a busted flush. She'd turned Malone's puppet into a punching bag, her career intact, her Somalia work safe. They grabbed coffee at a corner shop, the barista nodding at her like she was a local hero, and she let herself breathe, the weight lifting for the first time in days. She'd won, outsmarted the system again, her dignity a beacon through the storm. Then the real blow landed. Marcus's phone buzzed, a text from Lila at UN comms. CNN's got something bad. Turn on now. They bolted to a TV in the shop, the screen flashing. Breaking news, new video evidence in Coleman case. A grainy clip rolled, time-stamped, from Miami's airport, showing Aisha in the booth. But it wasn't right. Her voice, sharp and loud, yelled, "You can't touch me, pig," as she shoved Malone, her hand swiping at his chest, his stumble exaggerated. The real Aisha froze, coffee spilling on her hand, her breath gone. She'd never said that, never touched him. She'd stood still, card in hand, calm as steel. The clip looped, pundits gasping. "She's unhinged." Hayes's voice cut in, a pre-recorded bite. "This proves she's a threat. Probe's back on." The shop spun, the barista's nod turning to a stare, Marcus cursing under his breath. "It's doctored," he said, grabbing his phone, fingers flying. Malone faked it, fed it to Hayes. "Look at the shadows, they don't match." Aisha's mind raced, replaying the booth. Malone's smirk, his quick exit, the crowd's phones. He'd planned this, a trap laid before she'd even pulled. The card, his buddy Pete or some TSA hack editing reality to bury her. Social media exploded. Arrest Aisha trending, death threats pinging her inbox. Go back to Africa, lying scum. Her triumph at the hearing melted, a mirage shredded by Malone's next strike. The TV blared, a blonde anchor cooing. Was she lying all along? Aisha's hands shook, not from fear but from a rage so deep it burned white-hot. Marcus pulled her outside, the DC air thick with exhaust, his voice urgent. "We can fight this. I'll get forensic guys on it. Prove it's a fake." Aisha nodded, her jaw set, but her eyes were distant, fixed on the Capitol's dome. Hayes's smirk flashed in her mind, Malone's threat echoing, "This ain't over." He'd weaponized a mob now, turned her stand into a crime, her dignity into a target. The hearing's applause faded, replaced by a nation's roar for her head. Her phone buzzed, a UN aide texting, "Security's upping your detail. Stay low." She'd beaten the cell, the smear, the probe, only to face this, a lie so loud it drowned her truth. The stakes weren't just her career anymore, they were her life. She slipped into Marcus's car, the engine rumbling, her carry-on in the back, her mind a war room. Malone had escalated beyond spite, beyond Hayes, into a realm where facts bent to hate. She'd stood tall in that booth, outsmarted him with law, but he'd rewritten history, turned her into a villain for millions. The threats piled up, her inbox a sewer of slurs, her Somalia work buried under this filth. She clenched her fists, nails cutting crescents into her palms, a vow forming. She'd expose this, burn their lie to ash. But as they sped toward a safe house, a chill gripped her. This wasn't Malone's peak, it was his warm-up, and whatever came next would aim to kill. Dr. Aisha Coleman slumped in Marcus Tate's sedan, the DC streets blurring past. Her charcoal blazer crisp but her spirit battered, the weight of Malone's doctored video pressing down like a storm cloud. Her carry-on rattled in the back, her burgundy passport and immunity card useless shields against the death threats flooding her phone. "Die, liar. We'll find you." The Capitol hearing's triumph was ash now. Hayes's probe reignited, the nation baying for her blood. Marcus gripped the wheel, his knuckles pale, his voice tight. Safe house in Baltimore, 30 miles. UN's got it locked down. Aisha nodded, her jaw set, her eyes scanning the dusk-lit roads, every shadow a threat. She'd beaten the cell, the smear, the hearing. But this was new. A mob Malone had unleashed, his lie turning her into prey. They hit the safe house at 7, HIT, nondescript row house off Baltimore's I-83. its brick facade blending into the neighborhood's grit. Marcus punched a code into the keypad, the door clicking open, revealing a sparse interior. Beige couch, steel table, blinds shut tight. 2 UN security agents, burly guys in black polos named Jamal and Trent, nodded at her, their radios crackling with updates. "Perimeter's clear," Jamal said, his voice steady, his hand on a holstered Glock. Aisha dropped her bag, sinking onto the couch, her body screaming for rest, her mind racing. "How long?" she asked, meaning the threats, the video, all of it. Marcus paced, phone in hand. "Forensic teams on the footage. 2 hours maybe to prove it's fake." She exhaled, a flicker of hope, thinking she could ride this out. At 8, that hope shattered. A crash exploded downstairs. Glass splintering, the front window caving under a brick wrapped in a note. "Go back." Aisha jolted up, heart slamming as footsteps pounded outside, a guttural chant rising. "Get her out!" Jamal drew his gun, Trent barking into his radio. "Breach now!" Marcus grabbed her arm, yanking her toward the back door. But the room spun into chaos. Boots kicked the front open, 5 masked men in hoodies storming in, baseball bats swinging, slurs spitting from their mouths. "Black bitch thinks she's untouchable," one roared, his bat smashing the table to splinters. Aisha's breath caught, her mind flashing to Atlanta nights, her dad shielding her from bottles thrown at marches. This was Malone's mob, his video their rallying cry. Jamal fired a warning shot, the crack deafening, plaster raining from the ceiling, but the men charged, fearless, rabid. Trent tackled one, fists flying, but another swung a bat at Aisha, missing her head by inches as Marcus shoved her down. "Back door," he yelled, dragging her through the kitchen, the air thick with sweat and rage. She stumbled, heels slipping on tile, her blazer snagging on a chair, but she bolted with him, adrenaline torching her exhaustion. The door loomed, a steel slab, and Marcus flung it open, night air hitting her face as they spilled into an alley, trash cans clanging behind them. Shouts echoed, boots pounding, the mob spilling out, a pickup truck screeching up, its headlights blinding. Aisha ran, lungs burning, Marcus at her side, the alley a maze of brick and shadow. The truck roared closer, its grill a steel battering ram, and she dove left, Marcus right, as it slammed into a dumpster, metal screeching, sparks flying. She hit the ground, gravel tearing her palms, her blazer ripping at the shoulder, but she scrambled up, spotting a wooded lot ahead, trees dark against Baltimore's sodium glow. "Go," Marcus hissed, waving her on, his phone out, dialing UN backup. She sprinted, branches clawing her face, roots snagging her heels, until she broke into the woods, chest heaving, the truck's engine fading behind her. She crouched behind an oak, pulse thundering, thinking she'd lost them. Then they came, 3 of them, crashing through the underbrush, flashlight beams slicing the dark, their voices a venomous chorus. "Where's the liar?" Aisha froze, her breath shallow, her mind racing. Malone's video hadn't just smeared her. It had painted a target, summoned these vigilantes from Hayes' hate-soaked base. She edged back, twigs snapping under her, and they spun, beams locking on her. "There!" one bellowed, a wiry guy with a bat, his mask slipping to reveal a acne-scarred jaw. They charged and she bolted, legs pumping, dodging trees, her suit a ruin now, blood trickling from a cut on her cheek. They closed in, 20 feet, 10, their breath hot, hands grabbing. She swung around a trunk, kneeing the wiry one in the groin, his yelp piercing the night, and broke free, sprinting blind. Sirens wailed, distant but growing, red and blue flashing through the trees. Aisha stumbled onto a dirt path, her lungs screaming, and saw cop cars screeching up, doors flying open, officers spilling out, guns drawn. "Down!" one yelled, and she dropped, face in the mud as they swarmed past, tackling her pursuers, cuffs clicking, shouts fading to grunts. Marcus ran up, panting, his shirt torn, and pulled her to her feet, his eyes wild. "UN tipped them," he gasped. "You're safe." She stood, trembling, mud caking her blazer, blood smearing her hands, the mob slurs echoing in her skull. Safe? She'd escaped a lynching, her heart still jackhammering, her victory at the hearing a ghost. They trudged to the cop cars, officers cuffing the last thug, a beefy guy spitting curses as they hauled him off. Aisha leaned on Marcus, her legs jelly, her mind replaying the truck's roar, the bat's swing. Malone, she muttered, the name acid on her tongue. He'd fed Hayes the video, and Hayes had fed this mob, vigilantes birthed from a lie she'd disproved in court. A cop approached, a stocky woman named Ortiz, her badge glinting. "You okay, ma'am?" Aisha nodded, wiping blood from her cheek, her voice hoarse. "Yeah, get me out of here." Ortiz radioed for a medic, but then her walkie crackled, a voice cutting through. "She's a fugitive now." Aisha's head snapped up, her gut icing over. Malone's voice, smug, unmistakable, twisting the night's chaos into his next strike. Ortiz frowned, hand on her radio, glancing at Aisha. "Dispatch says you're wanted. Assault in the woods. Resisting arrest." Aisha's breath stopped, her eyes darting to Marcus, who cursed, loud and raw. "It's bullshit," he said, stepping between her and Ortiz. "She's the victim here." Ortiz hesitated, her jaw tight but nodded. "I'll sort it. Stay put." She walked off, radio buzzing, leaving Aisha rooted, her mind spinning. Malone had flipped it, turned her flight from a mob into a crime, his reach snaking into Baltimore's precincts, his lie now a warrant. She'd dodged bats and bullets, thought she'd survived, but he'd rewritten the script again, framing her as the predator, not the prey. Marcus pulled her to a squad car, its lights bathing them in red and blue, his voice low. "We've got the video proof coming. This won't stick." Aisha nodded, her hands shaking, mud flaking off her palms, but her eyes were steel, fixed on the woods where the mob had vanished. She'd escaped death, her pulse still racing, her body a map of bruises and cuts. But Malone's move wasn't survival. It was annihilation. He'd lost the hearing, the smear, the probe, and now he'd unleashed a manhunt, his hate a wildfire she couldn't outrun. The medic arrived, a young guy with a kit, dabbing her cheek, but she barely felt it, her mind elsewhere. This wasn't over. It was escalating, and Malone's next blow would aim for her throat. Dr. Aisha Coleman crouched in the back of a Baltimore squad car, its red and blue lights pulsing through the night. Her mud-caked blazer a testament to the woods chase that nearly ended her. Blood crusted on her cheek, her palms stung with gravel, cuts, her breath still ragged from dodging Malone's mob. Marcus Tate loomed beside her, his torn shirt flapping, his voice a low growl. "This is Malone's doing," he said, glaring at Officer Ortiz who stood outside, radio in hand, frowning at the crackling dispatch. "Wanted, Aisha Coleman, assault, resisting arrest." Aisha's gut twisted, her mind reeling. She'd escaped a lynching, bats swinging, slurs ringing, only for Malone to flip it, painting her as the criminal, his voice on that radio a taunt from 300 miles away. Her carry-on sat in the trunk, her passport and card inside, useless now against this new lie. Ortiz poked her head in, her stocky frame tense, her badge glinting. "Dispatch says you attacked those guys in the woods. Warrants active." Aisha's voice cut through, hoarse but firm. "I was running for my life. They came for me." Marcus leaned forward, his lanky arms braced on the seat. "Check the scene. Witnesses saw them chase her. This is a setup." Ortiz nodded, her jaw tight, and stepped away, barking into her radio. "Need backup evidence team now." Aisha sank back, her head throbbing, her debriefing triumph a distant memory. Hayes's probe a warm-up for this manhunt. Malone hadn't just sent thugs. He'd rigged the system, his hate a noose tightening with every move she made. Marcus pulled, her out as medics swarmed, a young guy named Sam patching her cheek with gauze, his hands steady but his eyes wide. "You're on TV," he muttered, nodding at a news van rolling up, its satellite dish gleaming. Aisha glanced over, her face plastered on a screen. Fugitive diplomat sought in Baltimore assault. Her mugshot from Virginia flashed, the tabloid smear reborn, pundits yelling, "She's dangerous!" Her stomach dropped, bile rising. Malone's lie had legs now, sprinting across networks, her escape from the mob twisted into a rampage. She shoved the gauze away, standing, her legs shaky but her resolve iron. "We're not waiting here," she told Marcus, grabbing her bag from Ortiz's trunk, the UN folder still sealed inside. "They'll lock me up again." He nodded, leading her to a motel 2 blocks off, a dingy hole called the Starlight, its neon sign flickering red. The clerk, a bored teen with a lip ring, barely looked up as Marcus paid cash for a room. No questions. No ID. Inside, the walls peeled yellow, the bed sagged, but it was a bunker, a pause. Aisha collapsed on a chair, her blazer shedding mud, and dyed her hair with a kit Marcus grabbed from a gas station. Jet black to dull brown, her curls flattened under a cap. She stared in the cracked mirror, unrecognizable, a fugitive in her own skin. Malone's frame-up stripping her identity as fast as his mob had chased her life. Marcus set up a burner phone, his fingers flying, calling Lila at UN comms. "We've got proof coming," he said, hanging up. "Hold on." He hacked into Malone's email from a laptop, his skills from law school days cracking TSA servers, like eggshells. "Here," he said, shoving the screen at her, texts glowing. Malone to Hayes. "She's done after this." Malone to Pete. "Push the assault charge, make it stick." Aisha's blood boiled, her fists clenching. The web, laid bare. "He planned it from Miami," she said, voice low, lethal. "The video, the mob, this." Marcus nodded, digging deeper, finding a thread to a vigilante chat. "Take her out, Baltimore crew." Her breath caught, the truck's roar echoing in her skull. She'd survived that, but Malone's next play was brewing. His hate a hydra, sprouting heads. "We leak this," she said, pointing at the screen. "End him." Marcus called a progressive journalist, Priya Khan, a fierce Indian American with a blog that punched up. "Got a scoop," he said, emailing Malone's texts. The vigilante thread, a timeline tying it to the video. Priya's voice crackled back, electric. "This is gold. Give me 90 minutes." Aisha paced, the motel's stale air choking her, her mind on the woods, the bats, Malone's radio taunt. At 10:30, Priya's story dropped. TSA officer frames UN diplomat in racist revenge plot. Screenshots blazed. Malone's words, damning. The vigilante chat-a-smoking gun. Twitter flipped. Justice for Aisha trending. Newsroom scrambling. Ortiz texting Marcus. Warrants pulled. She's clear. Aisha exhaled, her shoulders easing, the fugitive tag peeling off. Her name clawing back from the abyss. She stepped outside, the night cool on her bruised face, her cap low, thinking she'd won. Marcus grinned, shutting his laptop. Malone's toast, Hazel back off. Aisha nodded, a flicker of relief. Her Somalia work safe, her dignity hers again. They grabbed her rental car from a lot Ortiz had secured, a gray sedan untouched by the chaos, her carry-on in the trunk. She slid into the driver's seat, Marcus shotgun, ready to roll to Philly, a UN safe house waiting. She turned the key, the engine purring, her mind on rest, on rebuilding. Then she saw it. A wire dangling under the dash, black and thin, snaking to the floor. Her heart stopped, her hand freezing on the wheel. "Marcus," she whispered, "get out." He saw it too, eyes widening, and they dove, doors flying open, tumbling onto the motel lot's cracked asphalt as the car erupted. A fireball bloomed, heat searing her back, glass raining like shrapnel, the boom rattling her bones. She hit the ground, ears ringing, her cap gone, brown dye streaking her face with sweat. Bystanders screamed, a clerk bolting from the Starlight, phones out, filming the inferno. Aisha crawled behind a dumpster, Marcus beside her, his shirt singed, his breath ragged. "Bomb!" he gasped, staring at the wreckage, flames licking the sky. Her mind snapped to Malone, his texts, his reach, his refusal to lose. He'd planted this, his next strike not a frame but a kill shot. Her win with Priya a trigger for his rage. She stood, legs trembling, the lot a chaos of sirens and smoke, her blazer half burned, her carry-on ash in the trunk. Malone's voice echoed, that radio sneer. She's a fugitive now. He'd escalated beyond mobs, beyond lies, into murder, his hate a blast wave she'd barely dodged. Cops swarmed, Ortiz among them, her face pale. "You okay?" she yelled, pulling Aisha back. Yeah, Aisha lied, her voice a rasp, her eyes on the flames. She'd cleared her name, thought she'd buried him, but Malone's bomb screamed. Otherwise, his vendetta a death sentence she'd outrun by seconds. Her fight wasn't over. It was deadlier now, and he was still out there, plotting her end. What do you think, folks? Drop a number 1 in the comments if you're stunned Aisha survived that blast, or a 2 if you'd have hunted Malone down by now. Hit that like button if you're gripped by her dodging death at every turn, and subscribe to see how she fights this psycho's next move. Ever had someone push you to the edge like this? Spill it below. Let's unpack her grit together. Malone's gone lethal, but Aisha's still standing. Who's breaking first? So, will Aisha turn this near miss into a knockout blow, or is Malone's next trap already ticking? Can she outrun his madness, or will his shadow swallow her whole? Stick around to see how this war explodes into the endgame. Dr. Aisha Coleman lay sprawled on the motel lot's cracked asphalt, the heat of the exploding rental car searing her back, her brown-dyed hair plastered with sweat and ash, her blazer half-torched from the blast. Glass shards glittered around her, the air thick with gasoline fumes and screams, the fireball's roar fading to a crackle as flames devoured what was left of the sedan. Marcus Tate crawled beside her, his shirt singed, his lanky frame trembling, his voice a rasp. "Bomb," he said, staring at the wreckage, his eyes wide with shock. Aisha's ears rang, her palms bleeding from the dive, her mind locked on that wire under the dash, a black thread she'd spotted seconds before it stole her breath. Malone's work, his hate now a literal blast, her carry-on, passport, and UN folder reduced to cinders in the trunk. She staggered up, legs shaky, the lot a chaos of flashing lights and shouting bystanders, a clerk from the Starlight gaping at the inferno. Officer Ortiz sprinted over, her stocky frame cutting through. The crowd, her badge catching the fire's glow. "You okay?" she yelled, grabbing Aisha's arm, pulling her from the heat. "Yeah," Aisha croaked, her throat raw, her eyes fixed on the burning husk. She wasn't okay. Not with Malone's kill shot missing her by a heartbeat, her victory over the fugitive frame-up torched in that blast. Marcus stood, brushing ash from his face, his phone out, dialing UN security. "Philly's safe house now," he said, his voice firm despite the tremor in his hands. Ortiz nodded, waving over a medic, a wiry guy named Dave who dabbed Aisha's singed shoulder with gauze, his hands quick but gentle. They piled into Ortiz's cruiser, the siren wailing as it peeled out, Baltimore's neon fading behind them. Aisha slumped in the back, her blazer a ruin, her mind replaying the wire, the boom, Malone's radio taunt. She's a fugitive now. He'd planted this, his rage at Priya's expose a trigger for murder, his network deeper than she'd guessed. Marcus muttered, "Forensics'll trace it. Bomb squad's on it." She nodded, her jaw tight, her body a map of bruises and burns, but her spirit steel. 60 miles to Philly, a UN safe house in a quiet suburb, a chance to breathe. They hit it at midnight, a beige split level with steel shutters, 2 agents greeting them. Kim, a short Korean woman with a buzz cut, and Leo, a broad-shouldered guy with a scar on his cheek. "You're secure," Kim said, locking the door, her Glock holstered but ready. Aisha sank onto a couch, the cushions stiff, her head pounding, her debriefing triumph a ghost, Hayes's probe a sideshow to this war. Marcus set up a laptop, pulling feeds. CNN blared, diplomat's car bombed in Baltimore, the motel blaze looping, pundits yelling, "She's a target or a terrorist." Her stomach knotted, Malone's lie reborn, the blast pinned on her now, his voice a shadow in every headline. "He's saying I did this," she said, her voice low, lethal. Marcus nodded, his fingers flying. Priya's story held. Warrants are gone, but he's spinning it. I've got his emails to Hayes. We'll use them. Aisha's eyes narrowed, her mind shifting to offense. She'd survived, and she'd strike back, hard. At dawn, she testified remotely to a Senate panel, a secure video link from the safe house, her face patched with bandages, her new gray sweater hiding the burns. Senators in oak-paneled chambers stared at her screen, their ties crisp, their expressions grim. "I'm Dr. Aisha Coleman," she began, her voice steady. "Targeted by TSA Officer Greg Malone since Miami. He framed me, sent a mob, bombed my car. Here's proof." She held up printouts, Marcus's hacked emails, each line a nail in Malone's coffin. "She's done after this. Push the assault charge. Take her out." The room hushed, a senator coughing, another scribbling, her words a grenade in their lap. "He's a racist with a badge and Hayes backed him. Suspend him, investigate them both." The panel's chair, a wiry woman named Senator Patel, leaned in, her glasses glinting. "These are serious claims, Dr. Coleman. We'll act." Aisha laid out the timeline. Miami's search, Virginia's cell, Baltimore's mob, the bomb, her, voice a blade cutting through Malone's lies. Marcus piped in. "Forensics matched the bomb to a TSA supplier. Malone's prints are on it." The senators shifted, murmurs rising, Patel banging her gavel. "Officer Malone suspended, effective. Now we'll probe Hayes too." Aisha exhaled, her shoulders easing, the screen fading to black. CNN cut in minutes later. Malone suspended, Coleman cleared in bombing. She'd won, hadn't she? Her name scrubbed clean, her Somalia work safe, Malone's badge yanked. Kim brewed coffee, the safe house quiet, Leo patrolling outside, his boots crunching gravel. Aisha sipped, the warmth a balm, her body aching but her spirit lifting. "We got him," Marcus said, grinning, his laptop shut, his eyes bright. She nodded, a flicker of peace, thinking she could rest, rebuild, bury this nightmare. Then the front door splintered, wood cracking, a dozen boots storming in, black-clad figures with rifles, faces masked but eyes cold. Aisha dropped her mug, coffee splashing her legs. Marcus lunging for his phone, but a barrel jammed into his chest, pinning him. She stood, hands up, heart slamming, as a figure stepped forward. Victor Hayes, his silver hair slick, his pinstripe suit pristine, a .45 in his hand, his smirk a blade. "You ruin me!" Hayes snarled, his drawl thick with venom, his eyes glinting with a madman's glee. "That hearing, your little emails, my career's toast." Aisha's breath caught, her mind racing. Malone's puppet master, his bankroller, a racist titan with DOJ ties, here to finish what the bomb missed. "You backed a monster," she said, her voice steady, buying time, her eyes darting for an exit. He laughed, a harsh bark, and swung the pistol, cracking her jaw, blood trickling down her chin. "You're the monster!" he spat, grabbing her arm, twisting it, his goons cuffing Marcus to a radiator, his shouts muffled by a gag. "Move!" Hayes barked, shoving her toward a van outside, its engine rumbling, its doors black as night. She stumbled, pain exploding in her face, her sweater snagging on the doorframe, her mind screaming. Kim and Leo lay slumped in the yard, blood pooling, their Glocks useless, Hayes's men too fast, too many. He'd stormed her sanctuary, his power unchecked, Malone's suspension a spark for his rage. The van peeled out, tires screeching, Phillies, suburbs blurring past, Aisha in the back, hands zip-tied, Hayes beside her, his gun on her knee. "Malone's a pawn," he said, his breath hot with whiskey. "You crossed me, and I don't lose." Her victory with the Senate melted, her clearance a taunt, this abduction his real blow, Malone's bomb a warm-up for Hayes' wrath. She'd survived the blast, thought she'd won, but now she was his, and death loomed closer than ever. The van rocked, her jaw throbbing, blood dripping onto her lap, her mind a war room despite the pain. Malone's prints on the bomb, his suspension, her testimony, all had cornered Hayes, and he'd struck back with a vengeance she hadn't seen coming. Kim's lifeless eyes flashed in her skull, Marcus's muffled cries a dagger in her chest. She'd cleared her name, buried Malone's career, only to face this. A kingpin unhinged, his empire threatened, his gun a promise of her end. She shifted, testing the zip ties, her wrists raw, her resolve iron. She'd escaped worse, and she'd escaped this. But as the van sped into the dark, a chill gripped her. Hayes' next move would be her grave, unless she turned it first. Dr. Aisha Coleman sat bound in the back of a black van, its engine growling as it tore through Philly's outskirts, her wrists chafing under zip ties, her jaw throbbing from Congressman Victor Hayes's pistol whip, blood crusting on her chin. Her gray sweater hung in tatters, her brown-dyed hair matted with sweat. The safe house a memory of shattered glass and dead agents. Hayes loomed beside her, his silver hair slick under dim light, his pinstripe suit pristine, his .45 resting on her knee, its barrel cold against her skin. His goons, 6 masked men with rifles, packed the van, their breath heavy with adrenaline, their eyes glinting through slits. "You ruined me," Hayes snarled, his drawl thick with rage, his whiskey stench filling the space. "That Senate stunt, your little emails, my donors are bailing." Aisha's pulse hammered, her mind racing, but her voice stayed steady. "A.R. lifeline in the dark. You backed a racist thug. This is on you." He laughed, a jagged sound, and backhanded her, the gun's grip splitting her lip, fresh blood pooling in her mouth. "Shut up," he spat, his eyes wild, a man unhinged by her defiance. "You're nothing now." The van lurched, gravel crunching as it pulled into a warehouse, its rusted doors groaning open, the night sky swallowed by shadow. They dragged her out, her heels scraping concrete, her body a map of bruises and burns from the bomb, the mob, the hearing's fallout. Inside, the space stank of oil and rot, steel beams looming, a single bulb swaying overhead. Hayes shoved her into a chair, zip ties cutting deeper, his goons circling like wolves, rifles cocked. "You think you're smart," he said, pacing, his gun twirling. "Malone's suspended, my name's Mud, but I'll bury you first." Aisha's head spun, pain flaring, but she locked eyes with him, her voice a taunt despite the blood. "You're finished, Hayes. Malone's bomb failed. This won't save you." He froze, his smirk twisting into a snarl, and swung again, the pistol cracking her cheek, stars exploding in her vision. "Keep talking," he growled, leaning close, his breath hot. "I've got DOJ friends, private cash. You're a ghost, now." Her mind flashed to Marcus, cuffed in the safe house, Kim and Leo's bodies in the yard, Malone's car bomb a prelude to this. She'd cleared her name, thought she'd won, but Hayes's power dwarfed Malone's, his wrath a tidal wave. She'd underestimated. She spat blood, stalling, her eyes darting for a crack in his cage. The warehouse echoed with his rant, his boots thudding as he circled her, his voice a venomous sermon. "You're the problem, Coleman," strutting around with that card, thinking, "You're above us, I built this system, you don't get to break it." His goons nodded, one muttering, "Should have stayed in her place." His rifle tapping the floor. Aisha's chest burned, fury drowning pain, her Atlanta roots roaring back, her mom marching, her dad teaching her to stand, every slur she'd turned into fuel. "You built nothing," she said, her tone ice, her words a jab. "You're a parasite, feeding off hate. Malone's your dog, you're just louder." Hayes's face purpled, his gun rising, but she kept going, buying time. "Kill me and the UN's still coming, Marcus knows." He paused, gun trembling, his smirk returning, crueler now. "Tate's next," he said, tapping the barrel on, her forehead, cold metal biting her skin. "You're my message. Cross me and you're gone." Aisha's breath hitched, Marcus's face flashing, his laptop, his fight, her lifeline snuffed if Hayes moved fast. She twisted her wrists, the zip ties loosening a fraction, her mind a war room despite the haze. He'd storm UN offices, silence Priya, bury the emails, his empire clawing back from her blows. She'd survived the bomb, the mob, thought the Senate was her win, but this was his endgame, a checkmate she hadn't seen. Her cheek throbbed, blood dripping, but she grinned, faint and defiant. "You're scared," she said, her voice a whisper. "That's why I'm still breathing." Hayes's eyes flared, his fist clenching, but a crack split the air, glass shattering, floodlights blazing through the warehouse windows. "Drop it," a voice boomed, boots thundering, UN agents swarming in, rifles up, red dots dancing on Hayes's chest. He spun, gun swinging but a shot cracked, his shoulder exploding in red, the .45 clattering away. He crumpled, howling, his goons diving for cover, Bullets ripping steel, sparks flying. Aisha ducked, chair tipping, her face slamming concrete, pain blinding but freedom close. Marcus burst through, his shirt bloodied, cuffs gone, his voice raw. "Aisha!" He cut her ties, yanking her up, his eyes wild. "Tracked your phones. Last ping. Brought the cavalry." Agents tackled Hayes' men, cuffs clicking, shouts fading to groans, the warehouse a battlefield of smoke and ruin. Aisha stood, legs trembling, blood streaking her sweater, her jaw swollen, but alive. Hayes writhed, clutching his shoulder, his smirk gone, his empire cracking. "You're done," she said, her voice a rasp, towering over him as agents hauled him up. Marcus gripped her arm, steadying her, his breath ragged. Kim and Leo held them off, gave us time. Her chest tightened, their sacrifice a weight. Her fight costing more than she'd dreamed. Sirens wailed outside, medics rushing in, a stretcher for Hayes, his curses echoing as they dragged him out. She'd won, hadn't she? His abduction foiled, his power broken, her life reclaimed. They limped outside, the night air cool on her battered face, Philly's skyline a smudge against the dawn. Medics patched her lip, her cheek, her wrists, their hands quick, her body a canvas of war. Marcus paced, phone buzzing, UN brass confirming Hayes' arrest, his DOJ ties under fire. "He's gone," he said, relief cracking his voice. "Malone's next." Aisha nodded, exhaustion pulling her, her mind on the safe house, the bomb, the hearing, all battles she'd survived. She leaned on a squad car, the raid's chaos fading, her victory sharp but fragile, her Somalia work safe. Her name, hers again. She'd beaten Hayes, his gun, his men, thought this was the end. Then it hit again. Marcus shouted, "Aisha, move!" As a shot rang out, pavement exploding by her feet, a sniper's bullet missing by inches. She dove behind the car, heart slamming, Marcus tumbling beside her, his eyes scanning the dark. Another shot cracked, metal pinging, glass shattering, the medics ducking, chaos reigniting. "Roof!" an agent yelled, rifles swinging up, but the shooter vanished, a shadow melting into Philly's sprawl. Aisha's breath raced, her body flat, her mind locked on Malone's voice. "This ain't over." He'd ambushed her, his suspension a spark for this, his gun wild where Hayes' failed. An agent radioed, "Suspect fleeing, male armed," but she knew it was him, his hate a bullet she dodged again. A red dot danced on her chest, fleeting, then gone, the sniper's aim a promise unfulfilled. Marcus dragged her behind a wall, his hands shaking, his voice raw. "He's unhinged. Won't stop." Aisha nodded, mud and blood caking her, her eyes steel despite the pain. She'd escaped Hayes, thought Malone was caged, but he'd struck from the shadows. His vendetta, a wildfire she couldn't quench. Agents fanned out, sirens blaring, but the dot lingered in her mind, a threat still loose. Her jaw ached, her wrists bled, her victory hollow, the fight clawing into a darker realm. Malone wasn't done. He was desperate, and his next shot would aim true unless she ended him first. Dr. Aisha Coleman flattened herself against the squad car's cold steel, her battered body pressed to the Philly pavement, bullets tearing chunks from the asphalt inches from her head. The sniper's shots echoed, a sharp crack splitting the dawn, glass raining from shattered windows as medics and agents scrambled for cover. Marcus Tate yanked her arm, his lanky frame trembling, his voice a hoarse shout, "Stay down!" Another round slammed into the car's hood, metal shrieking, the red dot of a scope flashing across her chest before vanishing. Her jaw throbbed. From Hayes' blows, her wrists bled under torn zip ties, her gray sweater a ruin of mud and blood, but her eyes burned with focus, locked on the warehouse roof where Malone's shadow had melted into the dark. He'd ambushed her, his suspension a spark for this madness, his hate a bullet she dodged again. Agents fanned out, rifles up, their boots pounding as they swept the perimeter, radios crackling with "Suspect fleeing, rooftop clear." Marcus dragged her behind a concrete wall, his hands slick with sweat, his breath ragged. "He's gone," he said, scanning the skyline, Philly's sprawl swallowing Malone's escape. Aisha's chest heaved, her lungs clawing for air. her mind replaying the dot, the shot, his voice on Ortiz's radio. She's a fugitive now. He'd lost Hayes, his bomb, his badge, and now he was a ghost with a gun, his vendetta boiling into desperation. Agent Kim's body flashed in her skull, Leo's too, their blood on Hayes's hands, but Malone's aim was hers alone, a promise unkept from Miami's booth. Ortiz sprinted over, her stocky frame hunched, her Glock drawn. "You hit?" she asked, her eyes wide, her badge glinting in the chaos. Aisha shook her head, mud flaking from her cheek, her voice a rasp. "No, get me secure." Ortiz nodded, waving a black SUV over, its tires screeching as it stopped, doors flying open. Marcus shoved her inside, piling in after, the driver, a UN agent named Raul, peeling out, the warehouse shrinking in the rear view. Aisha's hands shook, not from fear but exhaustion. Her body a wreck of bruises, burns, and cuts, her spirit teetering on collapse. "Where?" she asked, her head against the seat, her eyes half shut. "Bunker," Marcus said, his phone buzzing, UN brass on the line. 10 miles, underground. He can't touch you there." The bunker was a steel vault beneath a nondescript office park, its walls thick, its air stale, a tomb of safety. Raul punched a code, the door hissing open, revealing a concrete room, desk, cot, monitors glowing with feeds. Aisha stumbled in, her legs jelly, her sweater shedding dirt, and sank onto the cot, her breath slowing. Marcus set up a laptop, pulling UN intel. Snipers Hayes' militia, ex-mercs, pissed he's down. Malone's with them. Her stomach knotted, the web widening. Hayes' arrest a spark for this army. Malone, their trigger man. She'd survived the bomb, the mob, Hayes' gun. Thought the Senate was her shield. But this was war now. Her name a target for a shadow network she couldn't see. At noon, she showered in a cramped stall, steam washing blood and dye from her hair. Her natural black curls returning, a flicker of herself amid the ruin. She swapped the sweater for a UN polo, its blue crisp, her jaw swollen but her eyes steel. Marcus rigged a secure line, her voice about to go global, a plea to end this. At one, she faced a camera, the bunker's gray walls her backdrop, her words a lifeline to the world. "I'm Dr. Aisha Coleman," she began, her tone steady. "Hunted since Miami for doing my job. Malone framed me, bombed me, shot at me. Hayes kidnapped me. This is their conspiracy, rooted in racism, aimed at silence. I've got proof, emails, forensics, witnesses. The UN stands with me. The world must too." The broadcast hit every network, her face live on CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, her voice a clarion call, the emails flashing beside her, Malone's "Take her out," in bold. Twitter erupted, Chuck Aisha lives trending, protests sparking in New York, London, Nairobi, chants of "Justice Now" echoing. Hayes' empire cracked, his militia's donors named, their accounts frozen. UN intel pinning the sniper to a merc named Voss, caught on a rooftop cam, his rifle ditched. Malone's face looped, his suspension a headline, his vendetta a global disgrace. Aisha watched the monitors, her breath easing, the world rallying, her Somalia work a beacon through the filth. She'd won, hadn't she? The sniper nabbed, Hayes cuffed, Malone exposed, her safety a fortress now. Marcus clapped her shoulder, his grin faint but real, his laptop humming with updates. "Voss is in custody," he said, pulling feeds. "Malone's alone, running. We've got him." Aisha nodded, her body aching, her mind drifting to the booth, the card, the first spark of this hell. Protests swelled, DC's streets thick with signs, "End the hate." Her name a chant, Hayes' DOJ. Ties under fire, his militia crumbling. She'd turned the bomb, the abduction, the sniper into a roar, her plea a sledgehammer to their lies. Raul brewed tea, its steam a balm. The bunker quiet, her victory sharp against the chaos she'd outrun. She sipped, her jaw pulsing, thinking she could rest, heal, bury this nightmare at last. Then a chill hit. Marcus's phone buzzed, a UN tech patching through, his voice tight. "Audio leak just dropped online. Listen." He played it, Malone's growl filling the bunker, raw and unhinged. "She thinks she's won, but I'll end her," This network's bigger than Hayes, bigger than me. We're coming, Coleman, and you're done. The clip cut, static humming, Aisha's tea spilling on her hand, her breath gone, her eyes locked on Marcus, his face paling, the monitors flickering with the audio spread. Dr. Malone threats trending, pundits gasping. He's still out there. She'd crushed Hayes, caged the sniper, thought Malone was cornered. But this was his ace, a shadow cabal behind him, untouchable, her safety a lie. Raoul bolted the door, his Glock out, his eyes scanning feeds, but Aisha stood, her hands steady, her mind a war room despite the collapse. Malone's voice echoed, his bomb, his shots, his promise now a vow from a deeper dark. She'd rallied, the world broken his game, but he'd flipped it, his network a hydra she couldn't slay. Her jaw ached, her wrists bled, her victory hollow, the bunker a cage not a shield. Marcus paced, muttering, "We'll trace it, hit them harder," but her gaze was distant, fixed on the monitors, the protests a roar she'd sparked, now a shield against this new beast. She'd survived, stood tall, only to face a war she hadn't mapped, Malone's last laugh a blade still swinging. Dr. Aisha Coleman stood at the United Nations General Assembly podium, the vast hall hushed, her black curls framing a face etched with scars and resolve, her blue UN polo crisp despite the bruises beneath. 3 days since the bunker, Malone's. Audio threat. I'll end her. This network's bigger. Looping globally, her jaw still swollen from Hayes's blows, her wrists raw from zip ties, her body a testament to survival. Diplomats from 100 nations stared, their flags a rainbow behind her. Journalists perched in the gallery, cameras rolling. She adjusted the mic, her breath steady, her voice a blade cutting through the silence. Excellencies, colleagues, I'm not just a diplomat today. I'm a witness to a war waged against me, rooted in racism, fueled by power. She laid it bare, her words sharp, unscripted, the hall a vacuum sucking in every syllable. In Miami, Officer Greg Malone targeted me for my skin, not my status. He framed me, bombed me, shot at me. Congressman Victor Hayes kidnapped me, his empire backed by a shadow network Malone vowed to unleash. I've survived their hate, their bullets, their lies, with proof, emails, forensics, blood. Her hand trembled, not from fear but fury, as she held up a photo, the car bomb's fireball frozen mid-blast, a symbol of her defiance. This isn't just my fight, it's ours. Injustice anywhere echoes everywhere, from checkpoints to war zones. The room stilled, her gaze sweeping, the delegates, her voice rising. Peace isn't just treaties, it's dignity, defended in the mundane, the invisible. Malone's network, bigger than Hayes, threatens that. I've exposed them, but they're still out there. Senators, CEOs, untouchables watching me now. She paused, her eyes piercing the cameras, a challenge to the dark. I'm not here to beg safety. I'm here to demand action, to hold systems accountable from TSA desks to this hall. If we fail, peace is a lie. A single clap broke the silence, then a wave. Thunderous delegates rising, tears glinting. Her plea a spark igniting the world she'd fought to save. She stepped back, her shoulders squared. The applause a roar she didn't bask in. Her mind on Marcus, the bunker, the sniper's dot. She'd won, hadn't she? Hayes jailed, Malone hunted, the UN mobilized, her Somalia truce secure, her name, a global cry. She exited the stage, diplomats swarming, a Kenyan envoy gripping her hand, whispering, "You've changed us." Marcus met her backstage, his lanky frame tense, his eyes bright. "They're moving on the network. Arrests tonight," he said, his voice low, a UN aide nodding beside him, tablet buzzing with intel. Aisha exhaled, her body aching, her victory sharp, thinking she could rest, heal, reclaim her life. Then a stranger slipped through the crowd, a wiry man in a gray suit, his face unreadable, his hand brushing hers, pressing a note into her palm. She unfolded it, her breath catching, ink stark on white. Malone was a pawn. "We're watching." Her blood iced, her eyes darting. The man gone, swallowed by the throng. She shoved it at Marcus, his face paling, his voice a hiss. "What the hell?" The hall's roar faded, her triumph flipping to dread. The audio's threat real. A cabal beyond Hayes, beyond Malone, senators and tycoons untouched by her plea, their eyes on her still. She'd rallied the world, broken their pawns, but the kings remained, her safety a mirage, her life their next move. Marcus pulled her to a side room, the door locking, his hands shaking as he dialed UN security, his voice urgent. "We've got a leak, a threat now." Aisha paced, her mind a storm, the note crumpled in her fist, her jaw pulsing, her scars, a map of battles she'd won only to face this. "They're bigger," she said, her tone flat, lethal. "Arrests won't touch them. I'm their target, always will be." Marcus stopped, his eyes locking on hers, his breath short. "What's the play?" She stared at the wall, the flag's colors blurring, her Somalia kids flashing, their peace her why, Malone's growl a shadow she couldn't outrun. Then it hit, a plan so wild it burned. Vanish, fight from the dark. She turned, her voice steel. "Fake my death now." Marcus blinked, his mouth dropping, but she pressed on, her words fast, sure. "Stage it, crash a car, leak it. They think I'm gone, they relax, I hit back underground." He cursed, low and raw, but nodded, seeing it, his mind racing with hers. Within hours, UN agents rigged it, a sedan torched on a Jersey backroad, her DNA planted, a news blast at midnight. Dr. Aisha Coleman dead in crash. The world mourned, protests swelled, Aisha martyr trending, her face a saint's on screens, diplomats weeping, unaware she breathed still. She slipped out with Marcus, her hair shaved, her name erased, a ghost in a hoodie, boarding a cargo plane to nowhere, her fight reborn. Malone's network sighed, their eyes off her, their guard down, her death their win. Blind to her war brewing, she sat in the plane's belly, Marcus beside her, the hum drowning her pulse, her scars hidden, her resolve a blade sharpened in shadow. She'd stood tall, rallied nations, only to vanish, her triumph a mask for this twist, a checkmate they'd never see. The world grieved a martyr, her Somalia legacy cemented, but Aisha lived. Her next strike a whisper in the dark. Malone's pawn masters her prey. This end a beginning they'd dread. Aisha Coleman's journey in security officer forces black woman to open luggage, freezes when diplomatic immunity card appears, is a raw testament to resilience against systemic racism. Her ordeal, from a TSA officer's profiling to a congressional probe, mob attacks, a car bomb, and a shadow cabal's threat, reveals a stark truth. Prejudice isn't just personal, it's a network, woven into institutions, ready to crush those who defy it. Aisha's first lesson is unyielding strength. She faced every blow, Malone's lies, Hayes' abduction, the sniper's bullet, with intellect and grit, turning survival into strategy. Her diplomatic immunity card wasn't a shield, but a spark, exposing how power reacts when challenged by a black woman who refuses to shrink. The second lesson is the cost of justice. Aisha lost safety, allies, even her public identity, faking her death to fight on, showing that victory against hate demands sacrifice. Her global plea at the UN teaches us that silence enables oppression. Speaking out, even at risk, can rally the world. Finally, her twist, vanishing to strike from the shadows, underscores adaptability. When systems fail, you rewrite the rules. This story isn't just hers. It's a mirror for anyone facing bias, a call to stand, strategize, and persist. So, what's your takeaway? Have you ever fought a system stacked against you or seen someone rise like Aisha? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if her courage moves you, and subscribe for more tales of defiance. Share this to spark a convo about justice, because every voice counts. Thanks for joining this wild ride. Here's to strength, truth, and a world where no one's forced to hide to win.